Welcome to the Discover Montcalm podcast, where we're going to take a look at the communities, the businesses, the attractions, and the people that make up Montcalm County. Here is your podcast host, Duane Weed.
Hello, and welcome to Discover Montcalm. I'm your host, Duane Weed, and today I have Kyle Hamlin. He's the superintendent of the Montcalm Area Intermediate School District. Thank you, Kyle, for stopping in.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Let's jump right in it. Let's learn a little bit about you. Where did you grow up and what did you do when you were younger?
I moved to Montcalm County in 2008. So I was hired at Lakeview Middle School as a middle school principal. But prior to that, most of my life has been in Jackson, Michigan. So it goes into why I choose education. I started about 21 years old. I worked as a child development worker, was what we called it.
Okay.
At the Jackson County Youth Center. So during that time, I realized many of the kids who were, incarcerated, so these would have been teenagers, didn't have a father figure at home, male role model, however you want to say that. And so that was kind of the nudge for me to go into education. So at that point, I switched from, I was looking at criminal justice psychology at that particular time. I was a college student, so I was 2 years in. And so at that point, I switched over to education. And so I ended up I was started as an elementary teacher. And then after a handful of years of doing that, I moved into administration. Took over as a superintendent in Lakeview in 2011. And so in 2020, after Ron Simon retired, I was hired as Montcalm Area ISD Superintendent. So allowed me to stay in the community, still live in Lakeview, and just have a little longer commute to work.
That's not too bad.
No, not at all.
Not too bad at all.
So,
who has inspired you most? If you could pick somebody that, either personally or professionally, who has inspired you?
I always tell a story when you start talking specifically about people, like when you were in school. So I had a high school principal, assistant principal, Bobby Tompkins was his name. So I was an athlete, played basketball. Bobby played basketball, played semi-pro ball over the years, and played college ball. But he just had this great disposition about him, and so wasn't a really heavy-handed administrator. He was really relationship-based, and so if you ever were sent to his office, or maybe he'd talk to you about something you did, you just felt like you let him down. And so I knew, I didn't necessarily leave high school assuming I'd be into education.
Right.
That came later in life. But when I started working into that realm of being a teacher and being an administrator, I always remembered Bobby. So I would say Bobby was probably a driver in terms of somebody that I really tried to lock in how I carried myself as an administrator.
Well, let's jump into your role right now. For those that are out there watching this on YouTube, or you're checking out our podcast, we have Kyle Hamlin, the superintendent from the Montcalm Area Intermediate School District. Can you tell me what is an intermediate school district?
There are 56 ISDs, and they're either called ISDs or ESAs, Educational Service Agencies. You kind of think of economy of scale, and so we fill in maybe some of the gaps that the local schools don't cover. So for instance, we are responsible for the Career Center. We also cover some of the more difficult high need students that maybe a local doesn't have a classroom for that particular student. So, and I mentioned economy of scale. So what happens is if you have a couple districts with kids with similar needs, we often will have the program. And so we service local students at the Cider Center. So special ed, Career Center, and early childhood are really the areas that we hone in on.
Well, now that you started that, let's let's start with some of these services. Can you explain, like the preschool, the birth to 5-year-old, what does the ISD do to help that age group?
Yeah, years ago they started an initiative called the Great Start Readiness Program. So Carrie O'Connor is our director, does a phenomenal job in that role. So there are consistent academic standards for all the programs. We monitor implementation of those standards. There's ongoing training for those teachers in the program. So we coordinate the services on the training on those, monitor the fidelity of curriculum, and then also the funding for that program comes through the ISD. Not that we, it's not a carrot and a stick situation. It was just, it's sent to the ISD. People ask for slots. We just, disperse the slots that they need, and slots would just be the number of kids. And so we base funding based off slots. And most cases, we're able to give districts all the slots they need. In some cases, districts can't fill all the slots. And that has to do with just residency and how many people live in the area. So and then we also have, some birth through 2, and so we do provide some services in our early childhood program for that as well.
Then you have the needs of, I guess, special education.
Yeah.
That's the Cider Center. Some of what you do at the Cider Center, but you also help people in the school districts?
Yes, yeah. So we also place, we have psychologists, TCs that support the districts in running their programs.
Okay.
So the goal is to keep students in their local programs. So for instance, if I'm a student in Central Montcalm and I am having a difficult time and Central Montcalm doesn't have a place for that student, and they find there's the better fit for that student would be Cider Center. That's always the last choice, because your goal is to keep kids with their local community and their local kids. And so, but in some cases, the program they need is not there. So that's when those students will come to us. So the goal is always to keep students in their local schools. And we also have other academics that roll into your general education conversations. So MTSS is an initiative at the ISD that all the schools in the state it's a state pushed initiative, but all the schools in Montcalm County participate. And that's really just, it's called multi-tiered system of support. Might have been during our homeroom time when you and I went to school.
Okay.
But very prescriptive in terms of how they use that time during the day. So you have some kids who maybe need extra math help, and that's not a special ed help. That means I didn't understand a concept. Mm-hmm. So they can be paired into a math support class during that time frame to help.
Or if they need help with reading or whatever.
Help to get that concept.
Right.
And so it kind of, and that might be for 3 weeks, it might be for 9 weeks. It looks a little different in every district. It's not something that's permanent necessarily. And then you have some kids who need extension, that they already get it. So maybe it's an advanced opportunity, maybe it's enrichment. So you'll see that MTSS addresses that, and that's also something that's implemented to maybe try to address some of the gaps students are having in their instruction in the classroom. So hopefully if that is being done well, kids are progressing well, maybe you can avoid even having students in special ed. So the goal is to not have students in special ed, to provide everything they need to not be there, but some kids, that's what they need, so that's what we provide.
How many districts are in the Montcalm ISD?
There are 7 that you would think of, but there's really 8 public schools. There's Central Montcalm, Carson City, Montabella, Lakeview, Tri-County, Greenville, Vestaburg, and there's also Grant Academy.
Okay. So that gives
it's not Grant Academy, Flat River, no.
Okay. And you also homeschoolers.
Yes, we have.
And homeschoolers can still get these same services, but they get them through the district that they reside in. Correct.
Correct.
So if you're homeschooling out there and you live in the Vestaburg area, you would just work through the Vestaburg school.
Correct.
But you can get all these same services.
If eligible.
If eligible.
Yeah.
Well, there's always that. And
Yeah. For special ed, that's, there's an eligibility piece to that. And then the Career Center, you'd have to enroll through a local school in order to attend that. Okay. But indirectly, I would go through their local.
You touched on the Career Center. You're overseeing that, and what is the role of the Career Center in the county?
Career and tech ed trades. Obviously, there was a swing years ago where I think there was a strong push to trying to get all kids to go to college. Mm-hmm. And I certainly know that was heavily pushed with, when you had ACT and SAT and all those, activities associated with that. So trying to get kids to get those scores up so they can get into college. But so now we've seen a swing back to CTE and trying to get kids into the trades, whether it be construction trades,
health,
auto,
engineering,
digital arts.
Yes.
And also we have a educational course,
yes,
or classes at the Career Center, trying to encourage kids to consider educational career, and because there's a shortage in all those areas.
We hope you're enjoying our podcast, and we'll be back after we thank our sponsors. West Michigan Technology and Design Solutions, your IT and web hosting experts, westmichiganhelpdesk.com, and DW Video, your source for video production, websites, and your local videotape, slides, and 8mm film transfer specialist, dwvideo.com. Now, back to our interview.
Nowadays, you don't have to go to college. These trades, whatever they are, certain ones, like health and that, maybe you want to get a little bit more education, but your auto mechanics and your construction, they could go right out and start working. Engineering could come under an apprenticeship program at some tool and die place, for example.
Right.
But it's the beauty of that is that you have that available. And because I'm there now in the digital arts program, I start seeing what's happening with all the other programs, and it really is an opportunity for students to kind of try it before they buy it.
You're right.
As a 10th grader, you register, you come in as a junior or senior in most cases. But if you start a program and you go, I don't really want to do this, you'll finish it up. Maybe next year you can try something else in that junior and senior year. Much better than going to college, spending all that money, and then finding out that, I really don't want to be an accountant. I want to be whatever. But that's the beauty of the Career Center. And
yeah, we are seeing that you're finding that, there's a reduction in students just jumping into four-year universities. We have the luxury of having a Montcalm Community College right next door to the Career Center. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily that they're specifically tied together, at that point. But we do have a great resource here for students in this area, or adults for that matter, looking for a shift in careers to take some courses at a more convenient and reduced cost. But we've also seen at the Career Center, we've added to some of our programs. Mm-hmm. We added the digital arts that started as a part-time, and we're going full-time next year to that. And then we're also making our educational careers full-time. So we are seeing growth in terms of programming.
Yeah, and the health program has now expanded.
The health program has expanded. Construction trade and diesel and auto tech have always been kind of bursting at the seams a little bit.
Welding is
another one. So we have, Shannon Tripp is the associate superintendent who covers the CTE program and also early college. Mm-hmm. And so, she's a great champion for that program. And in conversations, she'll tell you that our focus is trying to figure out what programs to offer students that might yield better paying jobs. And so, there's been some other programs we've had over the years that have been popular, but we're honing in on trades that lead to maybe a more affordable livelihood in terms of income.
You brought up early college. What is early college? How can a high school student, I take it that you have to be in high school to get into early college.
Yep.
Explain, what is early college and what grade do they start?
After a student's sophomore year, they can apply to attend the early college program, which is housed at Montcalm Community College.
Okay.
Students go there and attend. They take their high school courses there, and then once they get to a certain point, they'll mingle in some college courses as well. And so each local school, depending on size, like Greenville is our largest public school in Montcalm County, so they generally will send more students than the others just based off of number of students they have. So basically their junior year will be done in a classroom there, and then by the time many of our students get to their senior year, they'll start intermingling college courses. And so what the early college program does, it was designed to focus on first generation students who from their family would be the first to attend college.
Okay.
Now, I don't think 100% of our students fit that, because at some point, you just start going to a lottery system, and so some of those kids do come from families that have, parents or family with a degree of some kind. But what happens is they have what we call, it would be a 13th year. So those students will complete their junior and senior year, and then they'll come back another year, and at the end of that 13th year, they would hopefully have graduated with an associate's degree.
Is there any other programs that, we haven't talked about that is offered through the ISD?
Special education support, so we support districts within the district. And then we also have a program in Greenville where we have classrooms and support students who have higher needs, and those are local kids that we serve. We also have the career and tech ed, early college, and then we also have the GSRP program where we serve birth through 5. Another program, again, this would be special ed, would be our transition program, and we serve 18 to 26-year-olds. So these would be students who weren't in high school, and that program is located in Stanton, and you may have interacted with them if you're in and around the county. That program really hones in on two things: life skills. So sometimes you'll pop into the transition center and they'll be working and cooking meals, trying to work on getting some of our students as self-sufficient as possible. And then the other is working on work skills, employability skills. So trying to get them to a point where they might be able to find a job and make a living.
You've been in Montcalm County now for quite a few years. You call Montcalm County now your home. What does Kyle do for fun in this county? What are some attractions that you like about this county that you go out and do with yourself or your family?
For Montcalm County, I can tell you the one thing that I enjoy the most. I was a city kid, so I'll just my wife and I'll jump into a car at night, or our Ranger, and buzz around some of the dirt roads in the area and look for deer. Or at this time of year, you've got cornfields that are knee high to waist high.
Yep. The
breeze blowing, so I really just enjoy. I know there's a peacefulness to that. So for me, just trying to enjoy the moment and from a scenery perspective, looking for a deer. So we've got some great restaurants in the area. So I spend some time at those. I want to be cautious, not maybe singling one out versus any of the others.
I get that.
But so certainly those. And just spend a lot of time with family. That's kind of what we do. I will say, Anderson and Girls, in Stanton is, particularly now that I'm a grandparent. So, getting to that stage in life where I get to only enjoy the fun stuff, and maybe some of the bigger headaches, my son and his wife can handle that. But
I understand.
But yeah, no, there's a lot to do. But a lot of it is just enjoying the rural area and peace and tranquility that comes with that, and that certainly comes with Montcalm County.
Well, similar question, but I wanna end it here with, if somebody came up to you and was looking at coming into this area, or people were looking for things to do, why should someone discover Montcalm?
When I moved to Montcalm County in 2008, and I still believe this, it was significantly different from my experience as somebody who grew up in the Jackson area. And so I found that people in Montcalm County genuinely take an interest in you. And it was an adjustment for me. So I tell a story of when I moved into Lakeview. I'm driving around town. I come out of Lepping's, the store there in town, and somebody's like, "Hey, you're the new middle school principal. You drive this Dodge Charger." I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute." So that was, people notice, people are attentive, but it was and then it struck up a conversation. It was a genuine interest in a new face. People are very welcoming. I found that, particularly during, if you see, and you hate to bring it up to potentially jinx anybody, but when crisis and tragedy hits, the outpouring of support and care is unlike anywhere I've seen before. So in terms of just neighborly and people taking care of you, Montcalm County has certainly exceeded any expectations that I would have had coming here. Not to mention just the natural beauty you have in the area, and there's there's a lot of great school districts here. So if you're looking for a quiet place to raise your kids, if you're looking for some peace and tranquility, people are going to care for you and take care of you and support you when you need it, whether it be neighbors or local schools. I think it's a great option for anybody who's looking for to be happy inside and outside of related to school districts.
And on that note, we have a lot. We have access to the bigger cities, but we can come home where it's quieter.
Yeah, the convenience is there. So you have, you're 45 minutes from Mount Pleasant, you're 45 minutes from Grand Rapids, Greenville's, 20 minutes or 30 minutes. I'm just thinking Lakeview in general.
Yep.
So, where I'm located, Big Rapids. So I can get to places if I need to, and I can get back and, not have somebody.
And we have this little water, just about 45 minutes to an hour west of us, that we can go along the beach and have a good time there. So thank you, Kyle, for coming in today. I mean, we talked a lot about the ISD and a lot of the different services. Those of you that are watching this on YouTube or you're catching it on our podcast, you can go to the Intermediate School District. It's MAISD.com.
Yep.
And check out their website if you want to know more there. And on my behalf of having you come in, I want to thank you for sharing that with us. Remember to buy and shop locally.
Connect and subscribe to Discover Montcalm Podcast at discovermontcalmpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Discover Montcalm Podcast. To be featured in an upcoming show, contact Duane at 231-250-9624. Remember to subscribe at discovermontcalmpodcast.com.